Hello everyone, welcome back to the Pro MMA Betting podcast. So we will break down the card at the Apex this Saturday as we always do, headlined by Blaydes taking on Derrick Lewis. We'll recap as we always do on how we got on at the weekend, and then we'll dive into the card. There's 15 fights on the card this weekend, so it's a very full card. So there's some fights this week I'm just going to literally talk about very briefly because I haven't got time to break down 15 fights and it'll take me over a couple of hours doing the pod if I go into detail on every fight. So some of them are going to be a bit briefer than normal. Not sure what ones yet. I'll just take it as we go along. But yeah, there will be some that will be briefer breakdowns. In terms of results over the weekend, for members, we only had the one pre-bet. We was on Aleksei for 2 units, which came in for us. Live betting, wasn't much on live bet at all. I hesitated on Usman. Bad mistake. He dropped down to minus 140. Hesitated, and then when I was kind of ready to pull the trigger, he dropped Burns I think it was when he dropped him with a jab, and obviously that wrecked the line. Big regret there. That was a really, really good price. I thought Burns was slowing down. At the end of round one, I really thought it looked like he was slowing. But then I thought when he went 5 with Woodley, but obviously it was very one-sided. This, even though he had a very strong round one, it wasn't as one-sided, and could see he was slowing, and I just hesitated. It was an error on my part. You can't hesitate in this game, especially on live bet, because I can't count how many times I've hesitated over the years on a bet, and then when I've actually gone to pull the trigger, someone's been dropped, and then it ruins the line. So you can't hesitate on live bet. You've got to go with your gut. So reminder there for me. But the only live bet we had was we put half a unit on Andrei after round one at plus 275. Obviously didn't come in, but no regrets on that bet. Yule won the second round on 2 of the judges' cards. So 2 of the judges had it 1-1 going into round 3. Yule's historic gas problems probably didn't help in round 3, and he just got outclassed. But no regrets at that price. You've got to take the risk. I thought he actually was winning round 1 until he got dropped right at the end. That's why I took the punt, because I thought if he can win the second round, that price isn't going to be there. And then I can't remember. The odds were really wide still at the end of round 2. I didn't get it, and the books were off because it was 1-1 on 2 of the judges' cards, but ultimately didn't come in. And we did have boxing. First time we had boxing in 2021 before the UFC. Wasn't the best start for us. First bet came in, Smith versus Ellis under 4.5 rounds. We took that, I think, after like round 1. So we put a unit on that, netted us 0.67 units. But then went on a bit of a losing streak, lost the next couple of bets. I had Woodmold to go the distance for a unit at evens, didn't come in. And I also took a punt on Kiko Martinez in the boxing and took a tiny punt, 0.2 units on the draw. I should have just avoided it because you just can't bet against a house fighter on these matchroom shows. They very occasionally will the away fighter get the decision. And here, the scorecards were absolutely scandalous. I think 2 judges had it 118, 111. Even Eddie Hearn let rip. That's how bad it was. So neither came in. So we won 0.67, but then we lost 2.2. So we lost about a unit and a half on the boxing live bet, and we lost a half a unit on the UFC live bet. So lost about 2 units on live bet over the weekend. But as I say to everyone, it's a long-term game, guys. When you look at the stats, if you go to the live bet tracker, there's a link below this video to the tracker, and it's on the website, prommmabetting.com. We've won 169 units on live bet across, I think this tracker is about 2 years old now. We've made 526 bets and won 320 of them, which is 61%. So on live bet, we win about 6 out of 10 bets. So you've got to be prepared to lose. We don't win every live bet. Live betting is so good because it gives you really good odds and you're actually seeing the event taking place. So it does allow you to take riskier bets, especially on dogs. And while they don't always come in, hence why we only cash 6 out of 10, you will find that we do cash a lot on dogs. Hence why we're in such big profit, 169 units profit on live betting across a couple of years. So when you sign up to the service, you have got to be prepared to lose, guys. We can't win every event. So we lost on live betting on the weekend, but as I'm showing you, historically, it's a very, very profitable venture, but we can't win every weekend. Same with the pre-bets. The weekend, we only had the one bet, Aleksei, that came in for us. Again, with the pre-bets, you can't win every weekend. But again, go and look at the trackers. They're below this video for the pre-bets. We are heavily in profit for pre-bets as well. But you just can't win every week. You have to take the long-term view. Much like the stock market, if you want to become in the UK, we call it an ISA millionaire, where you can invest £20,000 a year tax-free. If you want to become an ISA millionaire by investing the 20k a year into an ISA, based historically on average stock market returns, if you invest that 20k every year, it'll take you about 20 years to get to the million. So you've got to take a long-term view. I'm not saying you need to take a long-term view here, or I'm going to win you £1 million over 20 years. But what I am saying is you've got to take the peaks with the troughs. The stock market over that 20 years, it will not be in the green every single year. There, or in the red, in the black, I should say. There will be some years where it is in the red, and with the live betting and pre-betting, there will be weeks where we don't win, we do lose. So you have to take that on board. But if you look at the trackers, we win money year on year, but you've got to take the long-term view. That's why 95% of members are with us for the year, as opposed to signing up just for a month. It doesn't work. I've said this before. We could have a great month where you think, wow, what an amazing service, and then sign up for the rest of the year, and the following month is a rougher one. You've got to take the rough with the smooth. Or you could sign up for just a month and we have a bad month, but that isn't indicative of the service long term. So you have to think long term, guys. It's like anything in life. There's no get rich quick schemes. Anything that is going to make you money long term is worth investing in, but you need to have the long-term view. You can't be short-sighted and think you're going to get rich off something very quick. If you do, it's normally because you've been very, very fortunate. Things take time. Businesses, anything in life that is going to end up returning big returns, it normally takes many years. So with the betting, you've got to take the losing weeks for the winning weeks, but trust that we will have more winning weeks than losing weeks, and we will win money long term. All the tracker links are below this video. They're also on the website ProMMABetting.com. Packages are available from weekly to yearlies. I've already made the case for why yearlies are the better option, but you just need to change your mindset and have a long-term view, guys. It's just the way it is. There's lots and lots of opportunities for pre-bets and live bets. Bellator will be kicking off from April. Cage Warriors has got its first show in, I think it's March. PFL's coming in April. So it's going to get busier and busier in terms of events to make money on. And the boxing season's starting to kick off now. It always starts off slow, especially the UK one. It's always quiet the first couple of months. But we've got another boxing show this Saturday before the UFC. So there will be live betting for that as well. Then there's a little bit of a break then. But normally once you get to March, April, the UK boxing shows start coming thick and fast. So if you want to sign up to the service, ProMMABetting.com. Packages are available on the website. Any questions, you're probably best dropping me an email, info@ProMMABetting.com, or dropping me a DM on Twitter, which is @ProMMABetting. So we're going to dive into the card now. One other thing I'd like to point out that I am keeping a track on now, started doing it the last couple of events, is underdogs we pick on this podcast. As I say, week in, week out, this isn't your regular prediction podcast. I'm not just going to pick who I think wins. General rule of thumb, it's not set in stone, is I will go where I feel there is the value. So I will pick the person who I think the value lies with. I won't always do it. As I've just said, it's not set in stone, but it's a general rule of thumb. If my gut thinks the line's off, but at the same time can't bring myself to pick the underdog, I will still pick the favourite. But generally, if I think there's value on the underdog, I'm going to pick the underdog. And I'm going to start monitoring it. So I've looked at the last couple of shows. Not this show, the show before, the one where we had the flake fighters, Michael Johnson, Mike Rodriguez. There was 4 underdogs that won on that card. We, on this podcast, predicted 3 of them. Should have been 4 out of 4. I should have picked Clay Guida. Don't know why I didn't. But we picked 3 out of the 4 underdogs. And then UFC just gone. There was 2 underdogs that won. we picked one of the two. So over the last couple of weeks, we've picked 4 out of 6 underdogs. Is that right? So I had 3, 4, 4 out of 6. So it's not bad, but let's see if we can maintain that. Let's see how that looks at the end of the year in terms of picking the underdog. So that's something I'm going to keep an eye on, and I'll keep you guys updated every week. So I'm going to jump into the card now. Like I said, I'm not going to go into much detail on every fight here because there's just too many fights. But first fight up, I think we've got 10 fights on Fight Pass, and I believe they're trying to get these in a 3-hour window. So the pacing is going to be incredible here. It's going to be how we'd like the UFC to be all the time. The fights are going to end, and then they're going to throw out the next one immediately. So first fight, we've got Sergej Spivak taking on Jarrod van der Raa. Spivak, I actually think he's a decent fighter. Came into the UFC at a rough start against Walt Harris, but since then he's kind of solidified himself as a mid-level UFC talent. He got the win over Tai Tuivasa as a big underdog. Lost to Marcin Tybura, but I thought he looked alright in that fight. He was winning on the feet. He just couldn't stop the takedowns. And Tybura's a very good grappler. If he can get you down, it's difficult to get back up. And then he's coming off a win over Carlos Felipe, who Felipe's not bad. He's got decent boxing, and Spivak had a very close fight with him on the feet for the first 2 rounds, and then smartly went to his grappling in round 3. So I actually like Spivak. I think he's a decent guy. He's quite fast on his feet for a heavyweight. He's got good fundamentals, and he's shown he can mix in grappling as he did against Tuivasa and Felipe. Jarrod van der Raa, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, trains out of Dan Henderson's camp. Very big heavyweight. I think he's one that, I'm not sure if he cuts to make 265, but he weighs in near enough the limit. So he is a large man. We saw him in a contender series against a completely overmatched opponent, and he was having some difficulty early on. He got caught quite a bit on the feet before he took the guy down and pounded him out. Before that, he went 5 rounds with Tony Lopez. If you guys don't know Tony Lopez, grizzled veteran, heavyweight, been around a long time. Spivak fought Lopez as well, finished him in the first round. And before that, he fought Renan Ferreira, who he lost by triangle in the second round in a fight that he was losing pretty handily. So difficult to find much more tape on him otherwise. You can go back and watch the Vernon Lewis fight. I didn't watch that for tape purposes here, but I did watch it when he fought on the contender series, but I didn't bother going back and watching it here. Look, I think Spivak wins. I think he's the better fighter. He's going to have a big speed advantage. I don't like the price though. He's minus 230. The way I see in my head this fight playing out is Spivak's going to try and outbox him for 3 rounds. I'm not sure if he's going to be able to get Jarrod down. Jarrod's a big guy. He's from Team Quest. He should be good in the clinch. So I'm not sure how easy it's going to be for him to mix in his grappling here. So just the way in my head I see Spivak winning is on the feet, and it's heavyweight. He's faster, he's better striker, but it just takes one shot at heavyweight to change things. So I feel like if I'm betting on Spivak, I'm probably betting on him winning this across 3 rounds on the feet, and at minus 230, I just can't pay the juice. I can't do it. The over 1.5 got absolutely rinsed. It's like minus 250 last time I looked, which is completely unplayable at heavyweight. You can't be risking a minus 250 because, as I've already said, it just takes one shot. And the only thing that does strike a note with me is possibly Spivak decision, which, let's have a look what that's sitting at. Oh, that's rubbish. Damn. I guess people have probably bet that down. It's like I'm seeing plus 150 on BFO. It's not even playable, really. It's disappointing now. I thought that was going to be a lot better. So it's a pass fight for me, just based on the line. I can't personally bet a juiced heavyweight. I am going to pick. See, this is one where I'm saying it. I never say they're all set in stone. I think the line is probably a bit wide for how I feel the fight will play out and the risk factor with it being on the feet for 3 rounds at heavyweight. But I'm still going Spivak here. I don't think highly of Jarrod, and Spivak I think is a decent fighter. So I'm still going to go with Spivak here. Next fight is Zahabi. So that is Faraz Zahabi, the head trainer at TriStar's brother, taking on Draco Rodriguez. This is one I haven't really jumped into just because there isn't much tape on Rodriguez. I know he looked good on the contender series, but I remember when that fight was happening on the Contender Series, it was just a real difficult one to cap for lack of tape. So Harvey's not fought in about 18 months. He's 33 years of age, I believe. Rodriguez a lot younger. He's the guy that's coming up. It looks like a promising prospect. I'm going to go with Rodriguez here, but for me, it's just a no bet just because of the unknowns. I don't have a good enough handle on Rodriguez, but he does seem like a talented kid. But like I say, there's just a real lack of tape on him. I don't fully know where he's at, so I'm not going to pay the juice on him. I think he's about minus 180. Yeah, I can't pay that, but I'm going to pick Draco here because I just think he's got the higher ceiling. He's on the rise. He's the younger guy. So Harvey's been out 18 months, 33 years of age. But, it's a step up for Rodriguez. So an upset definitely wouldn't surprise me here, but I'm just going for the younger guy who's on the up. But I'm not betting it. I don't have a strong lean on the fight. As I say, Rodriguez tape is limited, so it's not the kind of fight that I'm prepared to bet on. Not at that kind of line. Maybe if he was closer to evens, I'd be prepared to take a risk. But based on that line, definite pass fight for me. Next, we've got Chaz Skelly taking on Jamal Emmers. So we've got the returning Skelly here. He's been a bit inactive the last few years. Let me just bring up Chase's record. So 18-3, very respectable record. So he had a loss that was overturned to a no contest because he said he didn't tap. I don't think he did either against Bobby Moffett. But we've not seen him for... he's been out ages again, actually. He's been out like 18 months. He's just been really inactive, Skelly. I know he's had injury problems. So he came back since the Chris Gruetzmark, since the Jason Knight fight. So the Jason Knight fight was, he's getting on for 4 years ago nearly, about just under 4 years ago since that Knight fight. This will only be his third fight in almost 4 years. So he's been very inactive. He had the fight with Moffett that was turned to a no contest where I think he got darsed, but he said he didn't tap, and he didn't tap. And then he's coming off that win over Jordan Griffin, who showed some bad fight IQ in that fight. Griffin, I mean, the tale with Skelly has always been that he's a very good grappler. He's opportunistic. Stand-up's always been a bit shaky. He does crack. He's got a decent right hand. But he slows down. He can't pace himself very well, and he is 35 years of age now. He's going to be 36 in May. It seems like a tough fight on paper for him. Jamal Emmers is someone that's got good wrestling, doesn't tend to lean on it. When you go and look through his fights, he's pretty content to stand and trade with people. He was standing and trading with Julian Rosa. He was competitive, but he was winning the fight until he got caught with a head kick and stopped. And he stood for too long with Giga as well. And I mean, that fight could have gone either way. He did wrestle in the second round, got a takedown. Giga slowed down, and he actually outstruck Giga in the third round. He's got decent striking, this guy, and he's coming off a win over Vince Cachero, who took it on very short notice down a upper weight class and was just overmatched. So I'm going with the more active, younger guy here in Jamal Emmers. I think he has to be careful round one, and surely he's not going to wrestle. He never wrestles. He always strikes. Surely the game plan here is to strike with Skelly. Skelly's takedowns aren't bad, but I think Emmers, as long as he gets through round one, it's definitely his fight. He's the better striker. Skelly, as I said, slows down. The Jordan Griffin fight. Jordan Griffin, some bad fight IQ. I can't remember exactly what he'd done because I taped this fight a couple of weeks ago now, but I know there was some real poor fight IQ from Griffin in that third round. I think he dropped for a guillotine. Sure, he dropped for a guillotine and put himself on his back, and it was 1-1 going into round 3. So I'm going with Emmers here. I think he keeps the fight standing. He's been bet up. I don't think there's any value now at the minus 230. But I definitely think he was the player, especially when he was under -200. I think he's a good bet here, and I think he probably wins the decision just by outstriking Sketty across the 3 rounds. So I will go with Jamal Wemmers there, probably by a decision. Next fight on the card, we've got Shayna Dobson taking on Casey O'Neill. Another one, taped it a good few weeks ago. Casey O'Neill, I came away unsure where she's at. Hard for me to get a read on. There was definitely positives and negatives. Her stand-up didn't look great. She was aggressive, but she was getting hit a lot. But she's only 23 years of age, and we haven't seen her in over a year because I couldn't find her last fight against Christina Steliou. So the last fight I could find for her was against Caitlin McEwen. So I've not seen her for a year. Young girl, could be improving. I know she's at Extreme Couture. I think it's Extreme Couture. It seems like she's dating Brad Tavares from when I was looking at her Instagram. But not seen her for a year. You've got to assume improvements. From memory, she was happy grappling in those fights as well. I think she kind of mixed in her striking and her grappling. And she had some hype. She's been bet down a lot. When I taped it initially, she was about, I think, like -220. And I do say for lower level women's MMA, it's dog or pass. I do kind of regret not putting something on Dobson now. The line's come down a lot now. It's a lot shorter. It's closer to a pick, and Dobson's about +120. So I'm not as intrigued to bet it now, but I should have pulled the trigger when Dobson was like +180, +190, just for the pure low-level women's MMA factor. Dobson's coming off that big win over Agapova, where Agapova was a massive, like -1,000 favourite. Agapova just gassed and got stopped. Before that, she had the awful fight with Priscilla, where she got knocked out in 40 seconds. Before that, against Sabina Mazo, she lost the decision, got hurt a few times in that fight. Lost a very one-sided fight. So, I mean, I know she's at elevation now, so she's putting the work in. And it's just hard to get a proper read on Casey because she's fought low-level girls. And as I say this most weeks, these guys or ladies that come into the UFC from the regional scene, they often look a lot better in the UFC. And I don't know whether it's the motivation thing or they up their training. I'm not sure what it is, but they often look a lot better than they do on regional tape. So I've got to assume Casey's going to look better here. And plus, we've not seen her for a year. Plus, she's 23, so she should be improving. But then you've got people like Jocelyn Edwards, who there's no tape in 18 odd months or 2 years even, and she comes in and looks pretty much the same fighter. So it's not always the case. But look, if Dobson was still +180, +190, I'd be picking her here. But now that it's come down a lot, I don't think there's much value on the dog price. Casey probably deserves being a slight favourite just because she's the younger girl. Improvements are probably going to be, but are more likely where she's younger. She's at a good camp. So I'm going to go with Casey, but again, I'm not confident here because I just don't have a full read on her yet. I've got a feeling she's going to look better. We've not seen her in a year. But Shayna's just had some very lackluster performances in the UFC. But she is coming off that big win, so confidence is going to be high for her. I'm in two minds on this one, honestly, but just with the way the current line is, I'll go. No, do you know what? I'm going to pick Shayna. I'll change my mind. I'm going to go with the dog here. I'm going to go with Dobson. She's at some books you can get like -120, -125. I'll go with Shayna. Just low-level women's MMA. I'd say go with the dog. I'm sure someone in the Discord chat we have for live betting mentioned the other day that since I said this, the lower-level women's MMA dogs are like 6-2. So let's just ride that wave. Let's see how we look over the course of a year picking these low-level women's MMA dogs. So I'm going to change my mind here and go with Dobson. No sound reasoning besides the line, is Casey O'Neill going to come out and look better than a minus 150 favourite? If she does, fair play to her. It's probably going to be a close fight. So let's go with Shayna. Next fight on the card is Nate Landwehr taking on Julian Rosa. This is going to be a very, very good fight. Slight regret here as well, because I taped this ages ago. I taped it when Julian was plus 140, and I regret not taking a punt on him at plus 140. I can't bet him there as the favourite. I do have reservations with regards to his chin. He's been knocked out 4 times in his career, so that is a concern for me. He's coming off great win against Sean Woodson. He took it on very short notice, I think like 3 days notice. Survived a tough first round and he just broke Woodson, just broke him down. Real good cardio, Julian Rosa. He's going to keep coming for however long the fight lasts. He's going to be in your face. But Nate is kind of the same opponent. Going to get in your face. Rosa is the better striker from a technique angle, and I mean they're both hittable because Rosa, even though he's long, he doesn't use the length. He likes to get inside, and I mean that is going to play into Nate's hands in a way, because Nate isn't. If you try and be technically better than Nate, it's not a hard thing to do. He had a very close fight with Darren Elkins. That fight could have gone either way. He might have swayed it with the judges in literally the last 5 seconds when he landed a couple of big shots, but it was a really close fight. And he had that loss to Herbert Burns in his debut where he done well to survive the submission and he got caught with a knee in the clinch. So, no, I mean, it was a huge knee. That's the first time Nate's been knocked out in his career. So I still have to lean towards him in terms of durability, but this is just going to be a dogfight. And it's a tough one to call. I'm still going to go with Julian just because, I mean, it is basically a pick'em actually, looking at the lines. It's basically a pick'em. So I'll go with Rosa. I wish I'd put something on him when he was plus 140. I'm not betting him at pick'em because his chin does worry me. If he had a cast iron chin, I would bet him here. But he doesn't. He's been knocked out, I know Arce was a head kick, and someone eats a head kick like that, it's going to put most guys away. But, we saw Devontae Smith put him away quickly. He did get dropped by Jamal Emmers. I think it was a jab as well that dropped him. The Bobby McIntyre fight, I haven't seen. I can't find it. But he got knocked out there. And Teruto Ishihara knocked him out as well. So, his chin looked very good against Sean Woodson because he did take a lot of punishment. But I don't think Woodson's the biggest puncher. I think Nate is a bigger puncher here, and these two are going to be colliding. So if I had pulled the trigger on that plus 140, I'd definitely be nervous, but I regret not doing it. There was some value there. Now I think pick and fight, I think it's quite accurate, in my opinion, to be honest. I know Nate is rough around the edges, but he's a gritty man, and I just think the durability sides of him, and that might be the difference here. But I'm still going to go Rosa just because I think he's the better fighter. It's just, if his chin holds up, I think he wins the fight, basically. So I think Nate is the one that is probably going to need a knockout here, whereas I think Rosa, if it goes to a decision, I think he's the one that's more likely to win. But it's definitely going to be a scrap and a half. So I'll lean Rosa there in one of the best fights on the card, if not the best fight. Next, Eddie Wineland taking on John Castaneda. I know a lot of people that are betting Castaneda here, and honestly, I came away from tape indifferent. I don't have a strong feel for this fight. I don't think Castaneda's great. I'm not saying you have to be great to beat Eddie Wineland. Eddie's clearly in the twilight of his career. But I just came away he just didn't blow me away. He gave he gave Nathaniel Wood a decent fight. He lost clearly. He lost 30-27. He had a decent round one where he was semi-competitive, but Wood was a level above. I watched a couple of his fights on Combat, and, nothing blew me away. He mixed in some takedowns. I don't think he's going to be able to take Eddie Wineland down. Eddie's always had very good takedown defence. He's durable. He's only been knocked out the once in his career, and that was back in 2014 in like his 5th fight. And he rematched the guy and it went to a split decision. So I don't think Eddie's going to put him away. And Eddie has had some jaw issues. I think he's had his jaw broke a couple of times. We have seen him knocked out a few times in the UFC. Henan Barral stoppage for me is a premature stoppage. He wasn't out properly. But Johnny Eduardo knockout was pretty bad, and so was the Sean O'Malley one, which was his last fight. Like, bad knockout loss there. But I don't think he's chinny per se, but maybe he's a little bit. I mean, Popov did hurt him as well in their fight. I bet Wineland there. I think I've got him as the underdog or slight favourite. But here, I've just got to go with the younger guy, the younger, kind of fresher guy. But I just didn't have the confidence to bet Castaneda. And when I done this fight, it was more like a pick 'em. Castaneda's like minus 120-ish favourite now. But I just didn't have a strong read on it. If Eddie's chin does hold up and it goes to a decision, I think it's going to be a very close fight that could go either way. I think you're looking at maybe a split decision type fight if there isn't a knockout. And while Wineland does have the 4 KO losses and he's coming off the loss to Sean O'Malley, I mean, Sean O'Malley's a very good striker. He managed to go the distance with Alejandro Perez and John Dodson, and the Johnny Eduardo knockout was like 6 years ago. So I don't think he's just... Before I done tape, I was thinking, Wineland, his chin's done. But I don't think he's necessarily as chinny as I maybe thought. But obviously, he's coming off of another knockout loss here, so that's not going to help. Can play tricks with your mind, could affect his confidence. But I just think it's going to be a close fight if he doesn't get knocked out. And Castaneda's not some massive puncher. So I'm going to pick Wineland here, just because he's the dog. He's ever so slight dog. I don't think there's any value on it. I think the line's pretty much accurate. But just I've seen everyone picking Castaneda. I've seen no one picking Eddie. And money has been coming in on Castaneda slowly. But I'm going to go with Eddie here to win some kind of like scrappy split decision type 3-round fight. I just couldn't bring myself to bet John. And I don't want to bet Eddie. He is at the tail end of his career. But Castaneda, he's not really UFC quality. Eddie's been in the UFC a long time, hanging around. I mean, you look at his wins, his last 3 wins are like Frankie Saenz, back in 2016, Frankie Saenz wasn't shot, so that's not a bad win. Mizugaki was kind of semi-shot around then. And then the win over Popov, who isn't UFC quality. But the losses have been to decent guys. Brian Caraway, John Dodson, Alejandro Perez, Sean O'Malley. And I think Castaneda, in terms of them losses, he's a level below them guys. So I think this is a winnable fight for Eddie at this stage of his career. And I'll go with him to win some type of close split decision as the dog, but definitely not confident. I don't have a strong lean on this fight. Next fight, Drakkar Klose taking on Louis Pena. This was a fight put together on short notice for Louis Pena. Drakkar Klose was originally on the card. I can't remember who he was meant to face. The interesting dynamic here for me is Drakkar Klose has a lot of success in his fights with calf kicks, and Louis Pena is a southpaw, so it's going to take away a big weapon for Drakkar Klose here. Drakkar's hands did look better against Dariush to me. I bet Dariush in that fight, and at the beginning of round 2, I was very nervous. He was landing some big shots, but ultimately he ended up getting cracked. It rocked him and he got knocked out. I'm not sure what his gym situation is. He was at the MMA lab, then he went to Fight Ready, where a lot of the guys did, to go with Eddie Char. He's no longer at Fight Ready now. He seems to be training all over the place. So, he comes across in the octagon quite arrogant. I wonder if there is some kind of personality issue with regards to him training at gyms. I haven't heard anything to say there is, but just messaging that I pick up, when he's in the ring, he doesn't seem like the most likeable guy. So I wonder if there's an issue there. But he is a dog. He'll get in your face. He'll throw down. He'll fight hard for 3 rounds. And Louis Pena is definitely, as a bettor, from a betting perspective, he's the kind of guy you can only bet as an underdog. He's lost as a big favourite a couple of times now. He lost to Worthy as a big favourite, and he lost to Trezano as a big favourite. You just can't be betting the guy as a big favourite. He was at AKA, he's at ATT now. He's been there a while. This might be his second or third fight at ATT. He's only 27. He's talented. He's got a good frame for the division. He's durable. He's got very good grappling, but he's got tall man defence. He's very hittable, but he does have a good chin. He always seems to take a shot really well. And he's got very crafty grappling. It's difficult to hold down if you take him down. He'll go for unorthodox submissions. But I'm not sure if I see him being able to take down Drakkar Klose. I think he's at a disadvantage on the feet just from how hittable he is. And when you look at his fights, he was... The Karma Worthy fight was very close on the feet, but I mean Worthy definitely won round 1 on the feet. In fact, Worthy was winning on the feet. He was struggling on the feet. The Garcia fight was pretty much, he just grappled him for 3 rounds. Frivola, he kind of coasted in round 3, and I've not got a major issue with that decision that he lost. He coasted in round 3. He didn't do enough. Byman and Peterson, he was just too much for. He overawed them, but Trezano easily outstruck him. I think Klose is going to outstrike him on the feet, and I think he's going to have difficulty getting the fight to the floor. But it is interesting, the calf kick isn't there for Klose, but his hands, as I said, did look better against Darrick. But I just think he's going to get in Pena's face for 3 rounds. I don't think Pena's going to particularly like it. I don't think he's going to have much success getting the grappling going. So I have to go with Klose. I'm not tempted to bet the -1. I mean, the line's come down a little bit. Some places he's -170 now. Actually, I mean that drops a little bit more. I'll be potentially inclined to consider Klose here. But what I was interested in was decision. Neither of them are finishers. Pena's durable. I'd be surprised if there is a finish. Close decision is... No, these books are getting too good. It's even money. I thought we might get +150. That's rubbish. If I was you, if you want to play close, I wouldn't just play the decision line. I would put half on his money line, half on the decision, just in case he gets to finish. The +100 isn't good enough just to bet outright, in my opinion. But I'm going to pick close here and likely by a decision. Next fight on the card, Jarrod Golden taking on Danny Chavez. Danny Chavez, so UFC debut recently. I remember when he made his UFC debut, because he was a bit of an unknown. There wasn't a great deal of tape on him to get an inclination for what he's like. He trains out of MMA Masters. They only produce good fighters generally. It's a solid camp, so he's going to be well trained coming out of that camp. And he looked very impressive in his UFC debut. He took on TJ Brown. And a dominant win. He wrecked him with calf kicks, really, really good calf kicks. He's very quick. He shut down Brown's takedown attempts very easily. He's very quick at digging underhooks and whipping you up when you're trying to get on his legs. He showed solid takedown defense in that fight. He slowed a little bit in the 3rd round, but TJ was putting a lot of pressure on him, and it was quite a high-paced fight. But he looked good. He looked very solid in that fight. It was an impressive performance. And that is kind of the only fight we've got to go off. I did find a couple of his regional fights. I think his last 2, in fact. But they're over in a couple of minutes. So it's always hard to take a lot from those fights. But it was good to see him over 3 rounds against TJ and not get a quick round 1 win. Jarrod Golden has moved back down to 145 after being up at 155 for a long time. He returned to 145 against Chris Fishgold. He'd been going through a tough spell, Jarrod. He'd had some bad knockout losses to Diego Ferreira, Joaquim Silva and Charles Oliveira, where he kind of got taken out pretty badly. I bet him against Chris Fishgold. I thought that was a good fight for him. I thought he'd be able to get his wrestling going. And Chris is, kind of a bit of a ball of energy on the feet. I thought that would be good for Jarrod and his wrestling. And I mean, he managed to just wrestle Chris for the 3 rounds, basically. And Chris helped him, and so did Dan Moret. They both dropped for guillotines. Just ridiculous decisions to make against a grinder like Jarrod Golden, putting themselves on their back. So just crazy fight IQ. And yeah, he basically grinded his way to the two decisions there. That is his game, Jarrod. He is a grinder. He's gonna try and apply pressure. The small cage is good for him, but he's going to be at a big speed advantage here against Chavez. One thing I didn't like about Jarrod in the Chris fight was I thought he looked very slow. I think he's one of those that's caught between 145 and 155, and I just think the cut down to 145 he's gonna, the disadvantage to him. He obviously wants to do it because he doesn't feel he's a big enough 155er, but the disadvantage is the speed, and he's going to be a big speed disadvantage here. On the feet, I think he's going to eat some shots. The calf kicks are going to be there for Chavez. And Jarrod's chin is a concern, especially moving back down to 145. I mean, the 3 knockout losses were up at 155. So if you're then moving down, I remember Duke Rufus, who Jarrod, I don't think he's with him anymore, but he didn't want Jarrod moving back down because that must be a tough cut for him. So you do worry about the chin moving down as well. But I have to go with Danny Chavez here. He's up at about minus 150 now. I took him a couple of weeks ago when he was a slight underdog. Very happy with the bet. Not so sure I'd play it now at the current price because, like I say, with Chavez, we are pretty much going off one fight. As a bettor, I do like to have more tape than that. But I thought there was value on the line as an underdog, even in view of there not being a great deal of tape, so I took it. So I just think the calf kicks, I mean, if he messes up Jarrod's calf, then it's going to affect his shot. He's not going to be able to penetrate. If he has to switch stances, he probably can't fight southpaw. He probably can't shoot southpaw. And it's just a big speed advantage. If Jarrod can get the takedowns, we don't know what Chavez is like off of his back. We just haven't seen it. So that is the risk here. Jarrod could get takedowns and it could be the round over. And Jarrod will stay in your face. He keeps coming for 3 rounds. And Danny did slow down a little bit against TJ Brown. So he'd probably be wise to try and bank the first 2 rounds here, just in case. Because if it is 1-1 going into round 3, could be hairy. But I'm gonna stick with Danny Chavez here. I just think the speed's going to be the difference. I did like his takedown defence. I think Jarrod's going to find it difficult to get the takedowns based on what I saw from Chavez in his debut, and I think Chavez probably wins a decision here. Next fight on the card, Hawes taking on Imavov. I probably broke this fight down when it was first scheduled. It was this year, wasn't it? So if you go back to when it was first scheduled, guys, I can't remember who I picked. I probably went with Imavov to survive round 1 and win down the stretch, and he was the underdog. I'm not sure what the line is now. I know he was the favourite. He's gone back as the underdog. So I'll stick with Imavov to survive round 1. Let's see what Hawes has got past round 1. Let's see if he can fight for 3 rounds. So, yeah, I'll go with Imavov. But if you go back to when the fight was originally scheduled, I probably spoke about it in a bit more detail then. I'm not going to go into it now. I think we're on to the main card now. We are. So we've got Arlovski, Tom Aspinall. First fight up on the main card. Well, I think, actually, from what I've seen, this fight is listed as being on the Fight Pass prelims. But I'm on Wikipedia. They've got it on the main card, so let's see what happens. Interesting fight. Tom Aspinall is one of those guys that is coming in with a lot of hype. The guys coming off quick knockout wins always garner a lot of hype. It's just a fact of the betting life. And it's profitable to fade these guys when they're big favourites. Whether this comes in or not, if you look across the history of betting, hyped jobs and fading them as hyped jobs, it's a profitable endeavour. Obviously, you've got to pick the right spots, but if you kind of fade these guys all the time, I think you'll find you'll end up in profit. Now, Tom looks good. He's got fast hands, good boxing, but he's beaten Jake Collier and Alan Bordeaux. Before that, he's fought, even including them two, he's fought no one. Let's be real. He hasn't been past round 1 for 4.5 years. He's been past round 1 twice in his career. Both times he lost. Okay, one was a DQ. I can't find that fight though, so I don't know what happened, but DQ'd in the second round. Was he getting a bit desperate? Perhaps. So we don't know what he looks like out of round 1. Big question mark for me. We don't know what he's like taking a shot. We haven't seen him hit. He's blown through the first two opponents. there's just too many question marks for me. He's got a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, but this fight's likely going to play out on the feet. Andrei Arlovski, much like I spoke about Overeem the other week, he's reinvented himself. He was going through a splurge of knockout losses. Everyone really him off, me included. He's come back and he's changed his style, and it's resulted in him not getting knocked out as much. I mean, the last two people to knock him out were Rosenstrike and Francis Ngannou. So when he's faced big, explosive, heavy punches, he's been knocked out. But against other opposition, he's been going the distance. He's kind of built a second career dragging fighters across 3 rounds and nicking decisions. He's done a good job at it. He's decisioned Albini, Struve, Ben Rothwell, Felipe Lins, Tanner Bosa. He's done really well at it. Augusto Sakai, split decision loss. Shamil Abdukrimov, or however you say it, I can't remember how you say his name, lost a decision there. Probably did lose that decision, but before that lost a decision to Taito Avasa. That was a close one. Could have gone either way there. If you're going 3 rounds of him, it's a close fight. So he does have an opponent here who is fast, which is a potential problem for Arlovski. But, Tanner Bosa had a speed advantage over Arlovski and lost that fight. I know Bosa's more kind of kick heavy, but Felipe Lins had a speed advantage over Arlovski and he lost that decision. Close fight. I just think if it goes to a decision, it's going to be a close fight, is my personal opinion. I think unless you blow Arlovski away, he's going to drag you into a close fight. And there's just so many question marks about Aspinall. What is he like past round 1? A lot of this hype, he trains with Darren Till, how much of that is baked into the line as well. Arlovski's a big step up in competition for him, and I would not be shocked if Aspinall comes out and knocks him out in round 1. It's heavyweight MMA. Andrei Arlovski's been knocked out a lot in his career. But for me, I took a shot on Arlovski a couple of weeks ago when he was plus 250. I don't believe the line should be this wide. Yes, Tom should be a favourite. I'm not disputing that. He's a lot younger, fresher. He's fast. He looks like he's got solid boxing, but he's not been past round 1. You don't know how big that is. He might gas out of his arse after round 1. Who knows how we look after round 1? I know Arlovski doesn't pull up a high pace. It would be a terrible look if Aspinall is gassed. But you don't know. Maybe Arlovski will survive a barrage and he'll punch himself. You just don't know at heavyweight. I'm not paying juice on a heavyweight. And I know Arlovski doesn't finish. This is the other thing with betting Arlovski. Is at heavyweight, he's just not finishing fights. The last fight he finished was back in, the Travis Brown fight, like 5.5 years ago. That was when he was fighting more his old style. He just went for it there. Since he's changed his style, much like Overeem, he's a lot less dangerous on the feet. Because he doesn't want to be engaging. He knows his chin's not granite. He's fighting smart, but at least Overeem's still nicking knockout wins with his ground and pound. Arlovski doesn't have that in his back pocket, so he's winning decisions. And the danger is, and I always say this about heavyweights, is if you're in there for 15 minutes every fight, it just increases the probability that you're going to be knocked out because it just takes one shot. You can't go 15 minutes every fight at heavyweight and not get knocked out, especially when your chin isn't granite like Arlovski's. So you get the feeling that he's maybe due a knockout loss. He's got 2 back-to-back wins by decision. Is a knockout loss due? Because if he's going to win, it's likely going to be another decision, and therefore he's putting himself in danger for 15 minutes. So that is the one thing that I don't like. You are probably betting on Arlovski winning a decision, but plus 250. And it is heavyweight. You never know. Arlovski could catch him. And as I said earlier, Aspinall, we've not seen how he reacts to being hit. Maybe he might not like it. He might be chinny. So I'm more than happy. I haven't gone big. It's less than half. I think I've got 0.4 units on him at plus 250. But I had to take the shot just because it's Andrei Arlovski. He never gets respected by the odds makers. And he's come through as a dog quite a lot lately. So I'm with Arlovski. But Aspinall probably blows him away in round 1, but I'm going to pick Arlovski. Next fight, Pat Sabatini coming in on short notice to take on Rafael Alves. So I went through, I hadn't seen Pat before. I went through and looked at about 4 of his fights. Bit of a grinder. He's quite low volume on the feet. What he really likes doing is getting you on the fence, trying to drag you down. If not, he'll hug you against the fence. He likes to get to the back, take you down that way, and win with top control. He's done what you'd want him to do so far in his career, but there's nothing really exciting there about him for me. I think he comes from the same camp as the guy with a massive tail in his back. What's his name? One sec, because he's fighting Jake Matthews, and his name's just completely gone from my head. I'll find it in a minute, but yeah, he trains with that camp. I think it's like the Daniel Gracie camp that Paul Felder used to train with. So I think Paul Felder's pretty familiar with him. Not sure if he's on commentating duty this weekend, but he's a bit of a grinder. Alves is I've still got him down as a little bit of a glass cannon, just because he's got a lot of stoppage losses on his record, even though he seems to have kind of sorted that out over the last few years. He's on a good run of wins at the moment. He's beaten some decent opposition. And he's from MMA Masters as well. So he's from, as I've already mentioned, very solid camp. I just feel he's probably going to be a little bit too explosive. I think he's a slightly bigger man. He's very physical. The problem as well with dropping for the takedowns is Sabatini needs to be careful if he does drop for a double leg. He doesn't leave his neck in there, because Alves has got a nasty guillotine. And he's got 9 losses, Alves, and all of them are inside the distance. That's what I mean by the glass cannon. But he's won his last 5 fights, and Felipe Douglas, he was losing that fight, but caught him with a huge right hand. Good win on Contender Series. Very opportunistic guillotine that he jumped on. You could tell he's got a nasty squeeze, and you saw it in the Nassourdine fight as well. I think he's got the advantage standing. He's very explosive. He's quite low volume as well, though. So, I wouldn't be shocked to see this a bit of a staring match on the feet. But I just think Alves has the advantage on the feet, and I just think he's gonna struggle to implement his game like he has been on the regional scene. Pat's been grinding people out, and just not sure if he's got the physicality to do that here against Alves, who's the bigger man, very explosive. I can just see Alves nicking this fight. I liked the over 1.5 when it was first released, but it got bet down quickly. It's now at, I think it's pretty accurate now. I think it's at about minus 215 or so, which seems about right to me, but it was sitting at minus 150 or so. I thought there was some value on that, because I can see it being a bit of a staring match. And if Pat does get his game going, I can just see there being a lot of fence hugging, but he's got to be careful with his head. He can't duck his head. He's got to go for the takedowns from like the body lock. He can't be dropping his head against Alves. Very dangerous guillotine. So I'm going to go Alves here. I don't think there's any great value on the money line. Like I said, there's something about Alves I just don't entirely trust. I just don't like that he's got all them losses inside the distance, even though he seems to have turned the corner. Just something puts me off when I look at his record and see 9 inside the distance losses. I think he's going to lose soon, but there was just nothing there from Pat that made me excited and made me think that he's probably got to win a decision here against Alves, and I just think Alves is going to be tough to take down, and I think he's going to be the better striker. So I'm going to go with Alves there. Next, heavyweight, Aleksei Oleinik taking on Chris Daukaus. A lot of love for Daukaus in the kind of community that I involve myself in. I'm a bit warier, I've got to say. I'm passing on Chris here. I get why people like him. He's got fast hands, good boxing, power. I like his brother. His brother's a very good fighter. Chris is a full-time police officer, so he's not fully invested in the MMA game. He must be training part-time, but he's looked good so far in the UFC. He's got 2 knockout wins. Obvious power. He's shifted a lot of weight as well. I looked at his weights when he was fighting even in his UFC debut, he was still up at nearly 250, but he came in 227 in his debut, in his second fight, sorry. So he's obviously taking it serious, and he's a dangerous guy with his hands. He's got very fast hands for a heavyweight, which is, we just spoke about Tom Aspinall, someone in a similar position in terms of hand speed. So it's always exciting to see those guys in the heavyweight division. Against Oleinik, who is slow, 44 years of age, I can see why people like Daukaus here. But for me, I think Oleinik gets a little bit underappreciated. I remember the Mark Hunt fight. I picked him against Mark Hunt. Everyone was picking Mark Hunt there. And he dealt with Mark Hunt. The guy's just a pain in the arse. He can be knocked out. He's got 8 KO losses. He's lost inside the distance in 4 of his last 4 losses are all inside the distance. Curtis Blaydes was a bit of a weird one. But Overeem just came out, that kind of old Overeem in that fight, really aggressive. I think Overeem knew he just had a big advantage standing there, and he went for it. Walt Harris blew him away very quickly, and then Derrick Lewis got the knockout right at the start of the second round. So, he can be knocked out, and it wouldn't surprise me if Chris knocks him out here. But much like Aspinall, Chris just hasn't been into, past round 1 really. And when he has, he lost his last fight that went into round 2 against the guy that has fought in the UFC. I can't remember his name. Let me just bring up his record. So Chris, I think 2 fights. He's had 13 fights. 2 fights have gone past round 1. Yeah, he lost to Azuna in the second round after having a strong first round. He slowed down in round 2. And he lost by submission in round 2 to Sean Tweed back in 2015. And he's got 1 win in round 2, actually, in 2018. So he's got a decision win back in 2016. So he's not been 3 rounds for 4 years, over 4 years. It's always a concern for me, especially at heavyweight. And Oleinik, I know he's a bit wooden. I know he's old. I know he's slow. But he's very gritty. The guy's going to keep coming, and you've got to put him away. And he will fight. He will gas as well. I'm not saying he's a cardio machine, but he's one of those that can fight through it. It's very tough. A lot of people can't do it when they're tired. You just can't fight through it. And Daukaus, against Azuna, he looked like one that perhaps can't fight through it. He was looking tired in that second round. Wheels went a bit flat on him, and he ended up getting knocked out. And like I say, he's not been the whole 3 rounds for 4.5 years. It just concerns me when a guy is coming up against someone like Oleinik, and if he doesn't get the round 1 knockout, it's going to be a lot of sweaty palms. If I bet Daukaus here and he didn't stop him in round 1, I'd start to get a little bit nervous. But like I said, he did come in really good shape that last fight. He was like 30 pounds lighter than he has been, so he's putting in the work. But still, even with the weight shift, I'd still like to see him have gone a solid 3 rounds, because Oleinik's going to... And the other thing with Oleinik as well is he's got crazy reach. He's got like an 80-inch reach, and I think the length of his punches catches people by surprise. I mentioned this with Usman last week, but when he throws a shot, I think the extension he has on it just catches people unawares, because he seems to land shots that you should see coming, but they just land because he's just got this reach that seems to just carry on. So I wonder how he approaches this. Is he going to dive for the leg straight away? Is he going to come out and just try and back him up with a barrage of punches and possibly get countered to get him on the fence? I mean, the small cage definitely favours Oleinik. And how's Daukaus going to look if he is taken down? I know he's a BJJ black belt. His brother Kyle's a very good grappler, so you've got to think Chris is a pretty good grappler himself. But there's just a lack of tape on the ground game. So I'm going to go against the grain here and pick Oleinik to win some kind of messy, come from behind, gritty, typical Oleinik performance. Like I say, it goes past round 1. How is Daukaus going to look? So Daukaus, like I said with Aspinall, he very may well get a round 1 knockout. And the likelihood is Aspinall or Daukaus, one of the two, is probably going to get a round 1 win. The one that doesn't it could get very, very interesting. So I'm going to go for the heavyweight underdog again here in Oleinik. But just to be clear, I haven't got any money on this fight. I completely get the Daukaus angle. Oleinik is just a horrible sweat to bet on, but he will fight for your money. But yeah, I have personally passed. But for the sake of where I feel the value lie, I just couldn't bring myself to. I've looked at it again today because so many people I know are on Daukaus here. I looked at it again, people I respect, but I can't go against my gut. Something in my gut is just telling me to stay away, and I might be wrong. I might be right. We'll find that in a couple of days, but I'm going with my gut here and staying clear, and I'm unconfidently picking Oleinik. So just beware. Next, Charles Rosa taking on Darrick Minner. Look, I have to pick Charles Rosa here. Now, I'm not betting Rosa because his takedown defense is terrible. He does silly stuff. If you go and watch his fight, where he got grappled a few fights back, he was just doing, his takedown defense is non-existent, and he was doing stupid stuff like he was already getting easily taken down, and then to add to it, he was doing like spinning back kicks where he's giving his back and then just getting taken down. I don't want to bet Charles Rosa as a favourite. No thanks, not with that takedown defense. But he's not a bad striker. He hasn't got power, but he throw volume. He's coming off that decision win over Kevin Aguilar, where he outstruck him basically. And if you go back and watch the same Shane Burgess fight, I think all three judges had him up going into round 3 because he will just throw a lot of volume at you. So he wins the striking here for me. Darrick Minner is probably going to need a submission win, and if you look at Minner's record, he's a round 1 or bust pretty much. 25 wins, 23 are inside the distance, 11 losses. He's lost once by decision and won twice by decision. You look at his record, and it's just, he lasted to round 2. The Grant Dawson, his UFC debut, was a typical Minner fight. He had a strong first round, and then he just busted. And you look through his record, he hasn't. Last time he was in round 3 was against Chico Camus, where he lost the decision 4 years ago. Since then, it's all round 1 or round 2, and he tends to lose when they go to round 2. There's 3 fights there that went to round 2 that he lost in round 2. How many of them did he win in round 2? 1, 2. He won 2 of them, from what I can see, just scanning, since the Camus fight. So 5 fights have gone into round 2. He's lost 3 of them, 1, 2. He just kind of implodes past round 1. I think he's had a proper camp for this fight, which might be a first for him. But I still have to look at the historical data here. And Charles Rosa is someone that he doesn't tire. He's got good cardio. He's strong for 3 rounds. He's tough to finish. I don't think he's ever been finished, except for the KO loss to Burgess. But I don't see the striking being a threat here. I think Minner's going to come out hard round 1. He's going to try and get the finish. I've saved this fight for live betting. The books will probably be aware of if Minner does have a strong first round. They probably won't go crazy and overprice him because historically what happens. But that's kind of the angle I'm looking for here. I don't fancy betting Rosa though as that big of a favourite just because of his takedown issues. Round 1 could be sweaty. Darrick is a dangerous guy. I'm not going to say he's not a dangerous guy, but he is a round 1 or bust type guy. He just seems to deflate after the first round, and I just think Rosa is definitely the sturdier guy, the more reliable guy. But it's a live bet fight for me, so I'm gonna go with Charles Rosa though. Next fight on the card, so we've got 2 left. We've got Ketlen Vieira taking on Yana Kunitskaya. This is actually the only fight, I think, on the card. Well, saying that, I haven't really looked at the main event either. But I haven't done any tape on this fight just because I saw the line. I wasn't going to bet Ketlen Vieira at that line. And also, I just think it is a winnable fight for Ketlen. Now, I bet Ketlen against Sarge, and to me, it looked like she was lacking confidence. She was coming off that bad knockout loss against Irene Aldana, and she just didn't look confident to me in that fight. Just didn't look like the old Ketlen to me. Maybe now she's got a win, maybe that will help restore some of that confidence. But she definitely lacked confidence. She lost the 3rd round against Sarge. She got outstruck. She won the first 2. I think pretty much with takedowns. I think it was the top control time that sealed the rounds for her, but she just looked like she was lacking confidence to me. I didn't like she didn't trust the chin, like her confidence was shot, and I can't bet her here as a near -300 favourite when I'm not sure where she is mentally. Yana is tough. She's coming off a dominant win over Stoilarenko, where she just basically done what she's good at, put her on the fence, held her against the fence. She ended up mixing in some takedowns, if memory serves me right, which was pretty risky because Stoilarenko's got a very good armbar. But that is kind of her MO, is putting you on the fence. And this is the problem here, is Ketlen's very strong, big for the weight class. I just don't think that game plan is going to work. So I'm going to pick Ketlen because this is a winnable fight for Ketlen, but I definitely don't advise you to be parlaying her up. I would just pass on the fight and live bet it. If Ketlen comes out and destroys her and you can't live bet it, then so be it. For me, I'll just, I'll take that, not a problem. I need to see where she's at. I need to see if her confidence is back. She's only young. She's got a lot of potential, Ketlen, but she definitely looked like she was lacking confidence, and I don't advise anyone to be betting a juiced favourite who is potentially lacking confidence. And Kunitskaya could make this very close. So it'd be interesting to see what the tactic is from Ketlen. Against Aldana, she came out on the feet. She looked really good, putting a lot of pressure on her. But different tactic against Sard. She didn't seem to want to overly get involved in the exchanges on the feet. And if you're scared of getting knocked out and you're not fighting to your strengths, it changes your game, affects how successful you can be. It's just a pass at this line. I mean, I kind of understand why people would bet Yana here, because if you're dealing with I would be saying, if I was in Yana's camp, I'd be saying, let's get in her face from the off. Let's test her confidence. Let's see where she's at mentally. But I'm going to live bet it personally. And do you know what? I've kind of talked myself into picking Yana here, to be completely honest. Now, I don't regard this as low-level women's eye. I always say bet the low-level women's fighter that's the underdog. But this isn't low-level. This is a higher-level fight. So this isn't for me like an auto dog pick. But no, I'm going to stick with Ketlen, but be wary. And I don't think there's any value, and I wouldn't be parlaying her up. I would wait to see. I would just risk not having a bet on this fight, and if it is competitive and you might be able to live bet Yana, great. If not, just accept that it's a fight that you've just lost betting on. I just don't think you should be betting Ketlen, and the line hasn't really moved, I don't think. Let me just have a quick look. I'm sure she's been like -275 since it basically came out. Let's see what it opened at. Yeah, it hasn't moved at all. So I think people have the same vibe here. They're pretty unsure on what we're getting here. So I'll pick Ketlen, but stay away. Main event, Curtis Blaydes, Derrick Lewis. I haven't taken this one just because Blaydes was -350. Heavyweight, Derrick Lewis has that knack for being completely outclassed for 2, 3, 4 rounds and then knocking someone out of nowhere. Didn't really want to get involved. I am picking Blaydes. I think if there's any value, it's looking at maybe Blaydes inside the distance. Derrick Lewis is good at getting up to his feet. It's not a technique thing. He's just so damn strong. The guy stands back up. And Curtis Blaydes isn't the kind of guy that's going to put hooks in. He rides you. You can get back to your feet against him. You look at the Justin Willis fight, look at the Volkov fight. But we have seen Derrick slow down in fights, and I just think if Blaydes keeps taking him down, Derrick keeps working his way back to his feet across 5 rounds, I can just see Derrick slowing down, and I can just see him eventually getting pounded out on the mat potentially. I did go to look at KO because I saw it was +125, and then I'm sure I saw +125, and then when I went back to it, it was -125. So I was like, ugh. I think I'll pass now. But I mean, for me, it's just, I'm sure people have parlayed him up. Curtis Blaydes, not my style here, just because anytime the fight's on the feet, you're going to be sweating. Blaydes has historically had a solid chin, but if Derrick Lewis lands clean on you, it's going to knock anyone out. So you've got to be careful playing the juice here. But Blaydes, he should win this fight. He's going to be able to get takedowns when he wants. He's not going to have the resistance that Volkov started putting up in the end. You know, Volkov, as they say, a bit like a table, he's so rangy. Lewis, very poor takedown defence. But he is difficult to hold down. But I just think as he slows down, Blaydes could have more success keeping him on the mat. And I can just see him eventually pounding him out. And the only time Lewis has really faced a good wrestler before was against Cormier. Easy takedowns, and Cormier got the quick submission win in the second round. Blaydes, no submissions on his record. So I guess he's due one. But I just think lightly pounds him out. And that's why I swung away from the KO prop. I thought it was plus 125. I probably would have played it then. Minus 125. I think you're probably better off just playing inside the distance then, just in case. You know, I've been burnt in the past. I'm sure some of you have when you've played KO over inside the distance for the sake of 50 points, and they end up getting the submission and you lose, and it's just annoying as hell. So I'm going to pick Blaydes. I don't see the upset here outside the typical Derrick Lewis come from behind, one punch out of nowhere. So I have to go with Curtis Blaydes. So that wraps up the card, guys. I'll be back next week to break down the next card. Good luck with your bets. I can't remember who I've picked underdog-wise or how many. I'll total that up in a minute when I write up who I've picked. But we definitely picked some underdogs. So I'll let you guys know how we've done on the underdog picks on this particular card. Good luck with your bets. You want to sign up to the service, ProMMABetting.com. Live betting service and pre-betting service. Live betting service is on a private Discord channel. We've got 150 odd members. Great camaraderie in the chat room. Lots of knowledgeable guys. Let's make some money. Good luck, everyone.